Okay, let's talk rice. We all want that perfect fluffy texture, right? Where every grain is separate. Especially, in American households, that seems to be the gold standard.
Absolutely.
But actually getting it consistently, that's another story. How often does it end up kind of sticky or worse, stuck like cement to the bottom of the pan?
Oh, happens all the time. It's super frustrating.
It really is.
But what if I told you the key wasn't some complicated technique, but just a really common pantry item? Something simple you likely already have,
Wow.
and it doesn't just nail the texture, it boosts flavor, and get this, has some actual health benefits too.
Okay, seriously. A simple pantry item. All right, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this. We want to figure out how this one humble ingredient can take plain old rice and make it something special, easier, tastier, maybe even healthier.
That's the mission.
All right, let's start with the fluff factor, because that's the big one for me, and probably for a lot of listeners. The clumping, the sticking. What's actually happening there, like chemically?
Right, so the main issue is starch. Rice has these long, complex starch molecules.
Okay.
When you cook rice in water, these starches absorb water, they swell up, and then they start to tangle like sticky chains. That's what causes clumping and sticking.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
Now, if you add a little bit of acidity to the cooking water, and spoiler, we're talking about vinegar here, the acidic acid in the vinegar acts like tiny scissors.
Scissors.
Yeah, molecular scissors. It basically snips those long, sticky starch chains into shorter pieces so they don't tangle as easily. The result, beautifully separate grains. And yeah, it really does stop the rice from sticking to the pot.
Wow. Okay, no more scraping the pot. That right there is worth the price of admission.
Totally.
And I'm thinking about things like making sushi at home. You absolutely need separate grains for that, and it's got to be easy to handle. This sounds like a lifesaver.
Exactly. It makes the rice much easier to work with.
But, okay, vinegar. My first thought, and probably a lot of people's, isn't my rice going to taste, vinegary, like salad dressing rice?
That's the number one question, for sure. And it's a fair one. But here's the thing. When you use the right amount, you usually don't taste the vinegar itself.
Really?
Yeah, it's subtle. Instead of overpowering, it actually kind of complements the natural sweetness of the rice. It brightens it up a bit.
Interesting.
And even better, it can help unlock umami, that savory fifth taste.
Umami in rice. How?
Well, the acidity seems to interact with certain compounds in the rice, enhancing that underlying savory quality. Think about how acidity works in other foods to bring out flavors. It's similar here, especially noticeable in, say, Asian dishes.
Okay, wow.
And if you're still worried about the flavor, you can always use a milder vinegar, like rice vinegar. Very subtle.
Rice vinegar, right. Good tip. Umami from rice. That's definitely not something I expected. But you also mentioned health benefits. That sounds pretty significant. How does vinegar in rice impact our health?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, connecting the kitchen to, well, our well-being. A key area is blood sugar management. Adding vinegar to a meal with complex carbs like rice seems to help moderate blood sugar spikes after you eat.
How does it do that?
A couple of ways, apparently. It might slow down how quickly your stomach empties, so the carbs enter your bloodstream more gradually. And it might also interfere with some of the enzymes that break down starches into sugar, so less of a sugar rush, essentially.
Okay, that's potentially a big deal.
Yeah, and there's even some research suggesting it could help lower fasting glucose levels over time, though more study is needed there.
That is significant, especially with rice being such a staple food and, blood sugar being a concern for so many people. What else? Any other nutritional perks?
Well, another interesting point is nutrient absorption. Specifically iron.
Iron.
Yeah, the acidity can help your body absorb iron more effectively from plant-based sources. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, adding a little vinegar to your rice could actually help you get more iron out of your meal.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially for plant-based eaters.
Exactly. And then there are some other potential links, though maybe less direct. Things like weight management, possibly due to improved satiety from the blood sugar control.
Right.
And maybe even some benefits for heart health, potentially related to lipid metabolism, but again, that's more preliminary. Still, it's pretty cool how one simple ingredient touches on these broader health aspects.
It really is incredible. Simple kitchen stuff having these effects. But okay, beyond texture, flavor, and internal health. You hinted at food safety. That sounds important. I know leftover rice can be tricky.
It can be, yeah. And this is another surprising role for vinegar. Historically, some cultures actually used it as a natural preservative for rice, especially in hot weather.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Because of a nasty little bacterium called Bacillus cereus.
Bacillus cereus. Okay, sounds bad.
It can be. The problem is its spores can survive cooking. And if cooked rice sits at room temperature for too long, like more than an hour or two, those spores can germinate, multiply, and produce toxins.
Toxins. Yikes.
Yeah, one type causes vomiting, another causes diarrhea. And crucially, reheating the rice doesn't destroy these toxins once they've formed.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's scary. So how does vinegar help?
The acidity from the vinegar creates a less friendly environment for Bacillus cereus to grow.
Right.
It doesn't kill it outright necessarily, but it slows down its multiplication. So it essentially extends the time window where the rice stays safe to eat.
Okay, so it extends the safety window. That's good to know. But it's not like a magic shield, right? You still need to be careful with leftover rice.
Absolutely. Crucial point. It helps, but it doesn't replace safe food handling. You still need to cool rice quickly, refrigerate it properly, and use it within a reasonable time.
Right.
My rule of thumb is always check it first. Does it smell off? Does it look slimy? If you have any doubt at all, just toss it out. It's never worth the risk.
Good advice. Always better safe than sorry.
Definitely. And one more quick caution. Don't overdo the vinegar. Too much could potentially cause acid reflux or an upset stomach for some people.
Right. Moderation.
Exactly. And maybe check labels on fancy vinegars. Some specialty ones might have added sugars, which you might want to be aware of, especially thinking about those blood sugar benefits.
So, okay, rice. It's everywhere. Billions of pounds eaten every year, just in the U.S., you mentioned?
Over 4.5 billion pounds annually. Yeah, It's massive. And globally, get this, there are over 40,000 different varieties of rice.
40,000? No way.
It's wild, isn't it? Long grain, short grain, medium grain, brown, wild, jasmine, basmati. The list just goes on and on.
That's incredible diversity from one plant.
And think of all the ways it's cooked. Boiling, steaming, baking. Every culture has its own traditions. Perfect sushi rice in Japan, aromatic biryani in India. It's central to so many cuisines.
Absolutely. So let's get practical again. That age-old kitchen debate.
Yeah.
Should you rinse your rice before cooking?
Yes, the rinsing question. It really depends on what you want. Rinsing washes away excess surface starch.
The stuff that makes it sticky.
Exactly. So if you're aiming for really fluffy, separate grains, then yeah, rinsing is generally a good idea. It helps. Okay, and don't feel limited to just water and vinegar. You can cook rice in other liquids too, like coconut milk for a creamy texture, or chicken or veggie stock for more flavor.
Ooh, nice ideas.
And herbs and spices. Think about adding some cilantro for a Middle Eastern vibe, or maybe a pandan leaf if you're doing Southeast Asian food. It adds amazing aroma and flavor.
Lots of ways to customize. Love it. Okay, the magic ratio for the vinegar. How much should we actually use?
The general guideline that seems to work well is about 1 tablespoon of vinegar for every cup of uncooked rice you're using.
1 tablespoon per cup. Got it.
And one last crucial tip. Patience. Once the rice is cooked, let it sit covered and off the heat for maybe 10 to 15 minutes before you fluff it.
Let it rest. Why?
It allows the steam to finish its work, redistribute evenly, and helps the grains firm up properly. It really makes a difference in the final texture. Don't skip the rest.
Okay, rest the rice. Good tip. So wrapping this all up then, what's the big takeaway for everyone listening?
I think the main thing is that this is such a small, simple change, adding a splash of vinegar, but it can make a really noticeable difference. Better texture, enhanced flavor.
And those surprising health perks we talked about.
Exactly. It just elevates your everyday rice cooking in multiple ways.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? How something so basic, something used maybe unknowingly for ages in different cultures, can have this kind of impact, improves your cooking, might even boost your well-being.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder, what other simple kitchen wisdom are we overlooking that could make our food, and maybe even our lives, just a little bit better? Something to think about next time you're making rice.